Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars, and I'm proud to present part 2 of Clay Curtis. In this episode, you're going to hear a lot, but mainly you're going to learn about why Clay was so devastated not to be invited to the gay coworkers party, and at what speed does a GT40 lose front tire contact. Enjoy. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to leave your comments below. See you at the end. Yes. I mean, he had to be gay. Like a straight guy could not talk about the colors and spell tire with a Y. And
that's right.
And it was just like, oh, and the bird's eye maple with the magnolia and the biscuit piping. My God.
Oh, I don't have my checkbook, but I'll definitely come back tomorrow and do it. And Jeff looks at him, and this is a pretty wealthy guy. Jeff looks at him and says, "Isn't that a Hublot watch?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just got it. It's a 50 grand watch." And Jeff says to him, looks him dead in the eye and says, "That'll do for the down." And literally slid it off his wrist.
Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
And I think this goes back to what we were originally talking about with our clients is you learn a lot from them as long as you're open to receive, right? Some people aren't open to receive. But I probably learned more in my life from my clients and the variation of different personalities, from lotto winners to pro athletes to pro wrestlers to, you name it. I mean, we came across them all. And so you got exposed to so many different people. And I think having that experience really prepared me for what came next in my life. Because I was you couldn't shock me, right? Like you are. You can't shock somebody that's been in sales for a long time, that's come across a lot of people, right? Other people may get a little nervous when things start getting tight. Bulletproof. Another thing you always used to say to me, people are going to be shooting bullets at you all the time. All the time. Clients are going to lie. They're going to not tell you the truth. You have to be bulletproof. You have to be infallible. You can't ever let them see it show. That advice. And I have taken that to heart, and I live my life by that. It's amazing in the period of time that we had together, so many things I took away, and that I still adhere to and apply today.
Clay, when did you start with us there?
Let's see. It was before the Continental GT first came out. There was never really an 04 model, I think, or maybe a few mules. The first ones were in 05, but I was working a year before that. So I'm thinking like 03 and change, like January of 03.
So were you and I together about 2 years?
Yeah, I think about that. We were there, we were together into the new showroom, and then everything gets foggy. Because next thing you know, you really start grinding, you really start spinning, you have your own group of clientele. I mean, you guys were doing such a great job in the pre-owned market previously that our name was starting to grow, right? Like you had alluded to with our Bentley guy, our representative. People were talking about us and stuff.
Now, earlier you said, hey, the bulletproof. I said the customers are going to lie to you. Don't let it get to you. And I'm not here to defend that, because there's probably a lot more car customers listening to this than there are car dealers, because that's the ratio of population.
Of course.
So, but let me clarify it. I don't back up in any way about customers lying.
Nobody does, but you have to recognize it, right?
But
it's not just about them lying. I mean, it's not really. That was just an example.
But I want to explain. But I think it's a good thing to explain to the world when they wonder how, what goes on, and they're listening because they're interested in the car business. So, my mother, your mother, whoever else is listening. A car buyer is often feeling outgunned, and it doesn't make them less of a man or less of a woman or less intelligent. They just feel like that the person that's got the high experience has advantages over the person that might do this once or twice a year, or once every couple of years, or every 5, who knows?
As is the same for them and their business.
That's right. So when we talk about the lies, here's the extent of them. So it's not really judgmental. The extent of the lie that the customer tells the dealer is, another dealer offered me X for my trade-in, trying to get you to pay that number. I'm not saying that I'm not making ethical statements about line in the sand, black and white, lie, yes or no. I'm just saying that I can understand in the name of negotiation why somebody might say, I can buy one for this much elsewhere. I can get this much for my trade elsewhere, or be optimistic about their credit rating. Try.
Yes, there's that.
Try to get, more favorable situation. So these are the lies that we talk about, and why. I mean, if you're an aspiring salesperson out there, or you're a seasoned salesperson and you just need to relearn something, we just need to not take any of that stuff personal. And we need to understand, like actually hug the customer that you're with, understanding that this is all coming out of some degree of fear. And I'm not trying to emasculate anybody. I'm never scared. What do you mean? But down deep, it's really just trying to get some sort of advantage in a business situation. I'm not going to talk about the rightness or the wrongness of it. So when we talk about these lies, it's not really coming from a judgmental
That's true. And that's
position.
It's
just coming from what's so, though. I mean, it does for sure. It's so. And the reason that I got to teach my staff, or the reason I train Grasshopper here, not to take that stuff personal, is we're also people. The reason we go into sales is we love people, and we fall in love with you every time, right? We make a relationship every time.
Yes.
When you'll let us.
Yes.
And we get our heart broken in little baby heartbreaks about, I was buying into you and you didn't really mean that the other guy was going to pay you that much for your trade, were you? Or Clay, you're going to go to lunch and think about it.
And you did a great job of as always, of deciphering the strange words that are coming out of my mouth. So you're absolutely right. I forget that we're actually podcasting right now, and other people are going to listen. I honestly, I'm kind of lost just in our conversation. So I apologize for all those viewers and listeners out there. If you were in any way offended, it had nothing, Jeff did a great job explaining it. So
yeah, and it's good that I'm forgetting too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're having a conversation, and I really pray that the steak that we can deliver to our guest,
we're just getting started. The best is
that
yet
it's an
to come.
authentic conversation. So in my notes here, you'd mentioned a little bit of the crew. You mentioned, God rest his soul,
Right.
Woody Richie.
And Woody Richie. Yes, sir.
So I'd like to explain Woody.
And then I have a great story for Woody. So explain Woody.
All right.
And then I'm going to explain one of the most humiliating experiences of my life.
I want to do Woody honor. I really wish he was. If he was, I'd have him on this podcast so fast if he was alive.
He would be the best.
The most colorful.
And
I can't even impersonate him because I can't pronounce the words the way. Like, he was American and did not have an English accent, but he made sure to put the English, like he'd say aluminium, right, instead of aluminum, but with no accent.
Tire with a Y.
You're right. To tire with a Y. Because that was proper. And I mean, he lived on a wooden yacht, and his father was a surgeon. I mean, he was really like this aristocrat. But Woody owned a shop called Proper Motor Cars in downtown St. Petersburg. And our number one competition to our mechanical shop at the dealership was this local, well-established, highly active in the Rolls-Royce Club, highly active like St. Pete Yacht Club, owner of Proper Motor Cars that did repairs and I'd say maybe some restoration type stuff. And we'd hear, Proper Motor Cars will do it for the. So we were kind of tired. And I mean, that's really a compliment to him because we're a large facility, large dealership, probably have a fixed and variable overhead bill of nearly $1 million a month. And this little shop with the guy with the little glasses was giving us a run for our money. So eventually Woody decided, he wasn't having fun anymore, or health reasons or whatever it was. He decided to close. And by the end, we were friendly. I mean, he would hand carry customers into order cars and that sort of thing. And of course, they wouldn't order a thing without him choosing the wood, the hide, the hood color, which, by the way, when I order, don't be impressed when I say hood color, because the very first Bentley Azure convertible, $350,000, $360,000 car that I sat down and ordered with a customer named Ed, when we were on the order form that we used to do on paper, check boxes,
The boot and bonnet.
what kind of wood or termed metal or embroidered whatever in the head, whatever. We would check off boxes and write it in from our samples and fax it into England. That's how it was originally when Vickers owned Rolls and Bentley before they sold to VW and BMW. And I'm very excited, Clay. I have George Walish, ex-general manager of Rolls-Royce, on a future episode. We'll interview in about 10 days. And he was, when BMW bought Rolls-Royce, he was employee number one and built the team and worked with the designer. And I mean, that and he was also founder of St. Michael's Concours up in Maryland. So I'm very excited to have George. But that was a whole, when the production car companies bought Rolls and Bentley and upped the production and made them better.
Giant cash infusion.
Yeah, no doubt. But prior to that, I mean, we were faxing in these orders. So I'm reading the order form, and it's a convertible, and it says hood color. And I look at the customer, and I'm like,
Are we doing a two-tone?
would you want a different color hood on your car? He's like, no. I says, I guess in England that must be popular. And I actually called the factory and got a very cute sounding English accent, girl at the factory. I don't know what she looks like, but very pleasant to talk to these people.
She had a great personality.
And she says, well, the hood would either be this cloth, this cloth, this cloth, or this cloth, and you'd probably want to match the carpet. And I'm like, a cloth hood? And it took me 5 more minutes for her to help me understand that meant the convertible top. And I'm supposed to be the guy, I'm the director of operations. So Woody would come in and hand carry his customers. I can think of names, I can imagine them, and he'd lay out up in the big conference table with the wooden antique table. He'd lay out the hide next to the wood, next to the carpet, next to the piping, next to the concave, the convex.
Yeah. He'd overlay primary and secondary hides.
The paint chip that's curved so you can see the light on it, a painted piece of metal. I mean, it was a beautiful kit. We had it in this bird's eye maple briefcase that weighed probably 125 pounds. You can kill somebody with it. You could barely move it room to room. So Woody was gayer than hell. I know that this is a family podcast, so I'm not making any judgment at all about his crimes against God and nature. But
even though we loved him, like
I couldn't love a guy more. I mean,
you can't love somebody feeling that way,
So loved him to death, flamboyant.
Yes.
I mean, he had to be gay. Like a straight guy could not talk about the colors and spell tire with a Y. And
that's right.
And it was just like, oh, and the bird's eye maple with the magnolia and the biscuit piping. My God. So love the guy. So he closes his shop.
I do love him. I miss him tremendously.
And I go to our owner and I said, I want to hire Woody. And he said, well, what can he do? Can he be a service manager? Could he be a service writer? Could he run the shop? And our owner's doing the smart thing that a businessman should do. He's thinking about return on investment. And I'm like, boss, I don't care if he ever sells a set of tires or ever helps someone fix something.
He's not there for that. Yes.
Although I'm sure he will. First of all, he's got a following, unreal. So that shop that we used to fight against, we're going to get that customer base. But I said, boss, it's like having Joe Louis walking around the casino at Caesar's Palace, half punch drunk. Who cares? People will come in and see him.
You know, I was a young, virile male when I first started.
And you needed a ride one time. Go ahead.
And Woody was very well known for his annual party during Pride Week. And it was like the biggest gay party, like anyone would go to it, right? I really wanted to go to the party. I love Woody. I liked parties. I wanted to go to the party. So at that time, you know, I played sports in college, but I was so burnt out with it that after I left, I quit working out and everything. I wanted to just chill. So I wasn't, you know, in very good shape or anything like that. And I was still in my 20s. I think it was my late 20s. And I was like, Woody, I really want to go to your party. Woody's like, you're not nearly good enough shape to come to my pool party. And I was like, I was so offended. I'm like, are you kidding me? So, and he was serious. And I was like, this is bullshit. So I worked out like a madman for the next year. I went nuts. Got back into shape. I happened to turn 30 that year. So I go back to Woody next year. Party started. I'm like, Woody, you like? I'm like, I'm in shape. I'm ready to go. And he goes, didn't you just turn 30? I'm like, uh-huh. And he's like, you're too old for my party. And I was so just offended. Like I couldn't believe it. All I wanted from that point, all I wanted to do was go to Woody's party, and I would never be young enough or in shape enough to be able to do it. So that's my Woody's. That one of
I don't think you were offended. I think you were destroyed.
I was destroyed. I was so like, it makes me want to go work out now. Like anytime I need motivation, like I just think about Woody denying my entry to his party. And it's like, I'm going to go work out like crazy. So
did you ever see that photo of when I played the Indian at a Christmas party in the Village People?
Yes.
Okay.
It was on the wall in the war room.
I was in unbelievable lean shape.
You were a bodybuilder for a time.
Well, for 2 months. But the reason was that our owner's secretary saw me at a company picnic playing volleyball. And she said to me, you know, you look a lot chubbier out of your suit than in it. And I was destroyed. So,
you know what that's called is ego and hubris.
So I was already lifting. I mean, I wasn't like a bodybuilder. I was already lifting, but I'm in my early 30s, so it's not that hard to look good when you're lifting. But the trick there is I went on a bodybuilding contest diet.
I remember. You went insane, by the way, when you did that diet.
I did go insane. I mean, eating the 4 ounces of meat every hour, and
you would be in your office like, with your head on the desk, like, I'm so hungry.
Oh my God. Okay. I didn't know. Okay. But it's so crazy because you look big because you're so lean and every vein popping out and whatever. But I gained 7 pounds the day after that because there was a lot of water loss too. Were
you getting in shape for one of Woody's parties?
No, I'm just telling you that I can identify by someone saying,
you look awful.
I can completely,
yep.
I can completely empathize. So
I get it.
I'm very sorry that you were thin, but you weren't gay thin.
So before we continue, and I'm going to turn your podcast back over to you, but I do want to share a story. And this is one of those things I mentioned before that is not, I did not disclose to you. But I surely have to share it with your audience because it's truly, I still tell this story at every opportunity, and there's never been someone that wasn't more impressed. So for all you in the audience, you know, I was mentored by Mr. Stearns here in automobile sales and just sales and life in general. Anytime I've been in sales the rest of my life in the financial industry and planes and, you know, real estate, everything, right? You know, when you're around salespeople, other salespeople, inevitably you always get asked, who's the greatest salesperson you've ever known? Right?
Right.
And so I say, well, Jeff Stearns. And they're like, well, why? You know, there comes the next question. Why? And the why, everyone in this group will understand when I'm finished with this statement. It was a Friday night. People typically don't work too hard on Fridays in the car business, especially the exotic business. And Jeff had one of his, rather difficult clients in. And he was vacillating on whether or not to purchase a pretty expensive car. Jeff hung in there. He hung in there like I've never seen before. He couldn't be beaten. Like he just hung in there. So finally the guy agrees. And I was there because I wasn't allowed to leave until the doors closed. But so he finally gets the deal done. And the guy tries one more little side step. And he's like, well, because obviously in the car business, if you're going to take this car, we need a non-refundable deposit, right? Oh, I don't have my checkbook, but I'll definitely come back tomorrow and do it. And Jeff looks at him. And this is a pretty wealthy guy. Jeff looks at him and says, isn't that a Hublot watch? And he's like, yeah, I just got it. It's a $50,000 watch. And Jeff looks him dead in the eye and says, that'll do for the down. And literally slid it off his wrist and put it in the top drawer of his table and put him on a dealer plate and let him go. There's nobody else that can take a $50,000 watch off of somebody's wrist at 8:00 on a Friday night. Nobody.
I don't know if it's sad or interesting that I actually forgot that story.
Do you remember it now that I retell it? Yes.
Yeah, but now I feel like the old person that I forget more than I remember now.
You are.
That's right. I was watching Jerry Seinfeld on the Cars and Coffee and Comedians, and some guy, I forget which one, I think CK, says, I'm getting old. And Jerry says, no, you are old.
It's true. We're all old.
So, you've had a lot of experiences in life when you took a guy's 50G watch off of him who was him hawing on a car deal and you forgot.
Yeah. You know what? I never forgot that. I still tell that story all the time. And it's a hit at any party.
So I remember, and I think you were new, the Factory 5 fiberglass Ford GT40 with the doors that close into the roof, cut your head off.
They'll scalp you if you don't duck when you shut the door. Yeah.
So, can I go test drive this guy? Now, the audience should probably understand this. In the general car business, we always want you to go for a test drive. We always want you to go for a test drive. There's a couple of reasons. I mean, the first real reason is we want you to love it, so you'll want it and buy it. The other reason is we want to get anything out of the way that might be in the way of a deal. And if the seat doesn't fit you, or the armrest hits you funny, or you don't like a smell, or you don't like the acceleration, we don't need to go through a couple hours of talking money if you don't like it. That's the production car business. In the exotic car business,
opposite.
If they want to drive, we don't want them to drive.
Subject to the drive being as described.
But people that come in asking for a drive, if we were selling anything else, Cadillac, Chevrolet, Ford, Toyota, it doesn't matter. If someone came in and said, I want to test drive that car, we'd get up, jump up, get a license plate, get the keys, and get you behind the wheel ASAP. Statistically speaking, even if we weren't sure how serious you were or how able you were or any of that, it doesn't matter. The more people you get to drive, the more people are going to want it, the more people you'll get an offer from. Okay. In exotic cars, when they ask you to drive, we know we don't have a buyer, because the typical buyer of that car, you can't talk them into it.
No,
I don't need to drive. I really don't need to. These people are tell me, how many miles a year on these, and how many of these are in the garage?
I'd be shocked at 5,000 a year.
And 1,000 a year is not, let's face it, 5,000 a year could be high, because Clay, if you were looking at a 20-year-old, so let's talk about a 2,000 Arnage with 100,000 miles, That's a no value car.
That's a no sale green.
It's a no sale car with 5,000 miles a year. But if you were selling like my own Honda, and I said, hey, it's a 2000 with 100,000, you'd be like, that's nothing. In the exotics, there's too many around with 1,000 or 2,000. I mean, is it fair to say that a 20-year-old Bentley or a 20-year-old Ferrari, even with 20,000 miles, they're out there, but there's still plenty with a lot less.
Yep.
Plenty with a lot less. So I think,
absolutely right.
yeah, I mean, there's 5,000 mile 20-year-olds out there all over the place in that. Okay.
We have a customer's wife who would never drive a car once it that turned over 2,500 miles.
There'll be story after story.
Yes.
So when people come in wanting to test drive, it's like, let's kind of see what he does for a living. Let's get a look at his watch. Let's get a look at his shoes. And if they won't drive, you kill yourself to get them to drive. Because if someone doesn't want to drive a 430, they're capable.
But sometimes the reality never matches the fantasy.
True.
That was another of yours.
Right. And what that means is the dream of acquiring, or the dream of looking at it in the garage, once they live it and experience it, it's, the excitement thinking about it was a lot better. I used to talk about renting jet skis. Everybody wants a jet ski till you go rent one for an hour and you return it in 32 minutes because your back hurts.
Or the torque is so heavy on an Arnage T that it like literally breaks the glass in your cup holder. I mean,
right. So the Ford GT that had a tubular lightweight frame, and I'm assuming probably a 5-liter crate motor. I don't know if it was fuel injected or not, but this was a Factory 5. So this would be like when you see the Cobra replicas out there. There's a few companies known, Factory 5, Superform, and there's a few. Of course, Carroll Shelby did some continuation cars with the CSX VIN. But so this was like a very good Ford GT replica. And you come in asking, can I test drive? And because we'd all get, have a board meeting about someone wants a test drive. We sold so many through shipping and phone and fax, and they won't drive.
Yeah. That
someone wants to drive. It was like, what do we do? How do we act? So you came back a little sweaty from that one.
I did. We had done he wanted to drive it across the Courtney Campbell Bridge and back across to Tampa Bay. And
so for the listener in Montana, we're not all local here, Clay. So this is a causeway, which means a land bridge. I don't know how long it is, but it's probably 10 miles. I don't know. From our county.
5.7 miles.
Oh, 5 miles? Okay. From Clearwater side, our county, Pinellas County, to Tampa. So you get 5 miles of direction.
It's all over water, and you have a hump in the middle, right? That you still have shipping lanes that can get under. So we get across, and he's being okay. And of course, I'm sitting shotgun. He's driving, but no one drives alone. So he makes a turn around. He's coming back across the bridge, and he really starts standing on it. Now, we've been used to that all the time, right? Like, we have a lot of clients that are trained race drivers. We have ones that are very experienced. This guy was not either of those. So those old Ford GT, the GT40s, especially the replica ones, they didn't really have a lot of downforce. And so isn't the number like 135, 140 if you don't have downforce, your car starts to lift, right? The nose does. So we come over the hump, and we're coming down the backside of the hump. He's doing 140 with me in the car. And he's doing this with the steering wheel, and it's not turning at all. The nose is up off the ground, and the only contact point was the rear wheels. I turned him and told him, slow down now. You'll never drive a car here again. And when we get back, you should be lucky I don't call the cops. And he did, and he got it. But, that was really scary. Like, that was one of those things where if we had blown a tire, if we had threw a rod, any of those things, we'd be dead. Like, he was thoroughly irresponsible with not only his life, but mine.
I really got to explain to the listener that you came into the building like shaking.
I was.
I mean,
And
I could
don't get out
tell,
of it.
like, we've all been scared for one reason or another, whether we think we're going to get held up or the car robbed or a car understeering while a guy's heading towards a curb. We've all been there, but you were like to be taken seriously. Like, we would screw with each other nonstop. I wasn't about to screw with you at that point.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.